In the bustling heart of a sun-drenched city, where the call to prayer echoed through narrow alleys lined with colorful markets, a young executive named Kareem hurried through the crowded streets. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the cobblestones, a stark contrast to the humble sandals of those around him. Kareem was a man of ambition, climbing the corporate ladder with ruthless determination, always one step ahead in a world that valued wealth over wisdom. But on this fateful morning, as he rushed to an important meeting, his path crossed with an elderly man sweeping the dusty sidewalk outside a modest mosque. The old man, dressed in faded robes and wielding a worn broom, hummed a soft melody under his breath, a tune that spoke of peace and contentment. Kareem, irritated by the delay, snapped, "Move aside, Safai Wallah. Can't you see people with real jobs are trying to get by? Your kind always blocks the way." The words hung in the air like a bitter fog, drawing curious glances from passers-by. Little did Kareem know, this insult would unravel the threads of his own arrogance and weave a tapestry of profound change. The elderly man, whose name was Abdullah, paused for a moment, his eyes twinkling with a quiet wisdom that Kareem failed to notice. Abdullah simply nodded politely and stepped aside, continuing his sweeping without a word of retort. To the casual observer, he was just another cleaner, one of the invisible souls who kept the city tidy while the elite pursued their dreams. But Abdullah's life was far from ordinary. Born into poverty in a remote village, he had risen through sheer grit and faith, building a quiet empire of businesses that spanned continents. Yet, he chose humility over hubris, donating anonymously to orphanages, schools, and hospitals. Every dawn, he volunteered at the mosque, sweeping not for wages, but to remind himself of his roots and the Islamic teachings of servitude to Allah and humanity. "The best among you are those who are most beneficial to others," he often whispered to himself, echoing the Prophet's words. As Kareem strode away, oblivious to the storm he had stirred, Abdullah smiled faintly, knowing that true worth lay not in titles, but in the silent acts of kindness that shaped souls. Kareem arrived at his office, a gleaming tower of glass and steel, where he was the star of the sales team. His colleagues admired his sharp suits and sharper tongue, but beneath the facade, Kareem carried a burden. His family back home struggled, his sister needed expensive medical treatment for a rare illness, and his parents' small shop teetered on bankruptcy. He pushed these worries aside, focusing on closing deals that promised promotions and bonuses. That afternoon, during a high-stakes presentation, Kareem's world cracked. The client, a mysterious investor known only as the benefactor, cancelled abruptly, citing a personal emergency. Frustrated, Kareem vented to his boss, "Who does this guy think he is? Probably some old fool wasting our time." Unbeknownst to him, the benefactor was none other than Abdullah, who had overheard Kareem's earlier insult while quietly observing from the shadows of the mosque's courtyard. Abdullah had been scouting for ethical partners, but Kareem's words lingered like a shadow, testing the young man's character. As days turned into weeks, Kareem's life spiraled. His sister's condition worsened, and the family's debts mounted. Desperate, he sought loans from banks, only to be turned away. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Kareem wandered aimlessly through the same streets. Exhausted and defeated, he collapsed on a bench near the mosque, tears streaming down his face. It was then that Abdullah approached, his broom resting against his shoulder like an old friend. "Young man," Abdullah said gently, his voice carrying the warmth of a grandfather's embrace, "what troubles your heart?" Kareem looked up, recognizing the Safai Wallah he had insulted. Shame washed over him, but in his vulnerability, he poured out his story, the sick sister, the failing family business, his own relentless pursuit of success that left him empty. Abdullah listened without judgment, his eyes reflecting a depth of empathy that Kareem had never encountered. "Come with me," Abdullah said, leading Kareem into the mosque's quiet library, where shelves brimmed with ancient texts on faith, compassion, and human resilience. There, over cups of steaming tea, Abdullah shared fragments of his own journey. He spoke of losing his parents young, of toiling in fields under scorching suns, and how faith in Allah's plan had guided him to unexpected fortunes. "Wealth is a test, my son," Abdullah explained, "not a crown. The Quran teaches us that whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life. But righteousness comes from serving others, not stepping over them." Kareem, humbled, apologized for his rudeness, expecting rebuke. Instead, Abdullah smiled. Insults are like dust on the road, they brush off with time. What matters is the lesson they leave behind. The conversation stretched into the night, with Abdullah revealing more about his life. He wasn't just a cleaner, he was a philanthropist who had funded countless scholarships and medical aids, always in secret to avoid praise. In Islam, the left hand should not know what the right hand gives, he quoted softly. Karim felt a spark ignite within him. A realization that his chase for material success had blinded him to the true power of humanity, selflessness. But the real twist came the next morning when Karim received a call from his boss. The benefactor had rescheduled the meeting and specifically requested Karim's presence. Nervous, Karim arrived at the opulent office, only to find Abdullah seated at the head of the table, dressed in a simple yet elegant thobe. The room fell silent as Abdullah greeted Karim warmly, introducing himself as the investor. Gasps echoed from Karim's colleagues, everyone was stunned. "This is the Safai Wala," whispered one. Abdullah chuckled, "Labels are illusions, friends. We are all servants in this world." The meeting transformed into something extraordinary. Abdullah not only signed the deal but offered Karim a partnership with a condition: a portion of profits would fund community projects. But the emotional climax unfolded when Abdullah, learning of Karim's sister's plight, quietly arranged for her treatment at a top hospital, fully funded, no strings attached. "This is not charity," Abdullah said, his voice thick with emotion, "it's our duty as humans. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the believer's shade on the day of resurrection will be his charity." Karim, overwhelmed, fell to his knees in gratitude, tears flowing freely. In that moment, the act of compassion bridged the chasm between them, transforming Karim's despair into hope and his arrogance into humility. It wasn't just financial aid, it was a lifeline that reaffirmed the boundless power of kindness, showing how one selfless gesture could ripple through lives, healing wounds unseen. Word spread through the city like wildfire. People who had once dismissed Abdullah as a mere cleaner now sought his wisdom, inspired by his story. Karim, forever changed, began volunteering at the mosque, sweeping alongside Abdullah not as penance, but as a path to inner peace. He mentored young professionals, teaching them that true success lay in uplifting others. Families gathered in homes and cafes, sharing the tale over meals, drawing parallels to their own lives, reminders that judgments based on appearances often hide extraordinary truths. In Spanish-speaking communities far away, where the story was translated and shared online, readers from Madrid to Mexico City found resonance in its universal themes. A single mother in Barcelona wept, seeing her own struggles mirrored in Karim's, while a student in Buenos Aires felt inspired to volunteer, echoing Abdullah's selflessness. As months passed, Karim's sister recovered, her laughter filling their home once more. The family business flourished under new investments, but more importantly, Karim's heart expanded. He visited Abdullah often, their bond growing into a father-son kinship. One serene evening, as they watched the stars from the mosque's rooftop, Abdullah imparted his final wisdom: "Life is a fleeting journey, my son. We enter with nothing and leave with nothing but our deeds. Let kindness be your legacy, for it outlives empires." Karim nodded, vowing to live by those words. In the end, the story of the insulted Safai Wala became a beacon of hope, reminding the world that beneath every humble exterior lies potential for greatness. It taught that insults may sting, but revelations heal, that arrogance crumbles before humility, and that acts of compassion can ignite chains of goodness, transforming strangers into saviors. No matter our station, we all have the power to choose kindness, to see the divine spark in every soul. And in that choice lies the true miracle of humanity. A force strong enough to surprise us all, leaving us forever changed, inspired, and hopeful for a kinder tomorrow.